What's going on, everybody? John here with Bearded Outdoorsman Chronicles, and we're going to kick off a new segment tonight. So, a good buddy of mine, Wes, over at Strategic Veteran Outdoors, suggested that I start telling some of the background, some of the stories of my endeavors in the outdoors because I got quite a few. But anyway, I figured I'd kick this off with one of my most frequently asked about stories, and that is when I almost lost my right foot on a mule deer hunt in Wyoming. So we'll go back to the years 2020. I took my late father out to Wyoming as like a thank you gift for a mule deer hunt. You know, my father always supported me, got me into hunting, got me into the outdoors, and sent me on a few trips himself. So I wanted to repay the favor and take my dad on a mule deer hunt. So we traveled out to Wyoming in 2020, and the conditions were rough. My father was also 70 years old at the time and didn't get around so great with the extra elevation. Turns out he actually had stage 4 cancer the whole time. We just didn't know yet. So my focus was to get his mule deer tag punched. So we spent the first week and a half of the trip solely trying to get his tag punched. And we were seeing tons of deer, lots of game in general, some beautiful moose and some elk, tons of mule deer, but no bucks that we really wanted to put a tag on. So we hunted our asses off for that week and a half or so, and a bad storm actually ended up rolling in where we just got almost a foot of snow dumped on us real quick in a hurry, and it made getting around a lot more difficult, especially for my father. So finally, after day after day after day of just hammering this area, we get my dad on a 3x3. Now, it's not the kind of buck we were hoping to come home with, but with the conditions we were facing, with what we were seeing, and my dad's limited mobility, I just told my dad, get on that buck, shoot that buck now. So he did. And we were to go home in just a few days after that. So, got my dad's tag punch, got the buck back to camp, skinned it, quartered it, got it all good to go. And he was going to stay at camp the next day. And I was going to go out on my own. So now it's finally time for me to hunt. And I took off, took the truck and the side by side, had no cell service, and went back into a piece that we hadn't really ventured but had caught my eye. I wanted to dive a little bit deeper into it. So I parked the truck, unload the side by side from the trailer, take it off, fly down to the trailhead as far as I can take it, and park it, pack all my stuff up, and I'm on foot from there. So, to give you a lay of the land, it's kind of like a cut with a river bottom coming through it, with fairly steep walls on either side, but it's opening up, coming into like a nice pretty meadow. A lot of dense cover, not a ton of pine. It's mostly, Quakies in this area and thick underbrush. This looks perfect for me to come around a bend and catch some deer. So I'm just kind of slow playing it, taking a few steps, stopping, glassing, taking in the surrounding area, hoping to catch up to some of these mule deer that I'm assuming have to be nestled back in here. We're far away from any vehicle access. It's looking great. So I'm walking around this rock outcrop, and there's a ledge that's about a foot and a half or so, maybe 2 foot, and I'm trying to stay right on top of that ledge and work my way around as I'm looking down into this river bottom. Well, there's a boulder in my way that is about 3.5 foot high or so, and it's shaped like an egg. And it's pretty close to the edge of this ledge, but there's more rocks behind it. It's going to be difficult to pass. So I put my hand on this boulder and I pass it behind me like so, and I try to step in front of it to go around this ledge. Once I get to where my back is in the middle of that boulder, I take my hand off of it. My pack's rubbing it too. And then I go to step to get around the other side of this boulder. Before I know it, whether it was my hand or the pack, I could not tell you, that boulder hits me in the back, takes me over that ledge, bends me backwards over it. And thank God, when the boulder landed off that ledge, it stopped. So now I'm bent backwards over this 3.5 foot tall boulder with my pack on too. So my pack's on the boulder. And I lean myself back up off. I take a step with my left foot. Right foot doesn't move. So this is where panic sets in. And I'm going to go ahead and give another disclaimer for viewer discretion being advised, because we're going to dive into the nitty gritty and I'm going to show you exactly what happened to my foot. But long story short, short story long, that boulder came down on my heel. So picture my toes on the ground coming up, and that boulder compressed my heel into my toes. Now, thankfully, I had a pretty solid boot on, and when adrenaline kicked in and I freaked out and I started ripping, I popped my foot out, and I was able to free myself, and I hobbled over a few steps, sat down in the snow, pulled my boot off, and as soon as my boot came off, I could see, just without pulling any punches, it looked like I had a hole in my sock about like that. And what I could see where my foot was inside the sock looked like somebody put hamburger in my sock and smashed it. So now I'm faced with some difficult decisions. I'm back in the wilderness. I have no cell service. I have the only vehicle. I have the only side-by-side. Nobody knew where I was, and I didn't have any other form of GPS to do SOS. Now, our cell phones in today's day and age does have the SOS function, but I freed myself from the boulder, right? So I'm thinking, I gotta get out of here. I slam my foot back in my boot, cinch it as tight as I possibly can, and I drop down to that creek bottom because it's the flattest, easiest walking. I'm thinking there's no way I'm picking my way through this rock outcropping like I did on my way back here. I just want to get back to the side-by-side, the cleanest, quickest, easiest, flattest route possible. So I drop down to this river bottom, and when I get down to the river bottom, I see a set of moose tracks. And the moose tracks are heading straight up the river bottom, right back to the side-by-side. So I'm hobbling pretty bad. I can only really walk on my tippy toe on my right foot, so I'm taking a step, kind of gimping, going like that, and I kept just telling myself, and this might sound stupid, but I just kept telling myself, follow the moose, follow the moose, follow the moose, get the easiest way, follow the moose, and I just kept doing that. Thank God I didn't run into the moose, but I did follow that set of tracks back to where I had to cut up over a little hill to get to the side-by-side. Now, here's where things get fun. So I finally walked myself roughly 3/4 of a mile or so back to my side-by-side. Now I got to drive the side-by-side back to the truck and trailer. My right foot don't work so good. So I drive left-footed back to the truck, load the side-by-side on the trailer because nobody else is coming out here to load my stuff up. Nobody else knows where it's going to be, so I don't want to leave an expensive piece of equipment just sitting out in the wilderness of Wyoming for God knows how long. So I load the side-by-side up, strap it down, hop in my truck, drive back to where my father and I were camping. I pull up, I'm just laying on the horn trying to get my dad to come out. And it's cold, it's nasty. My dad, he already punched his tag, he's relaxing inside. So, seconds felt like hours to me at this point in time. I jump out of the truck, leave it running, hobble up to the door, and as I go to pull the door open of the camper that my father and I were staying in, my dad opens up the door. And he kind of looks at me. He's expecting me to say, like, come look at this buck I got, come check this out. Come help me do whatever. But my first words were, you got to take me to the hospital now. So he's kind of puzzled. I walked myself up to the door. He looks me up and down. He goes, all right, well, let me grab a few things, do whatever. I said, no, now. So he kind of looks at me puzzled. And I said, all right, whatever. So he comes over, gets in the truck. We start driving to the hospital. The nearest hospital is about an hour away. So we start driving, and my dad's 70. Roads are questionable. He's going well under the speed limit. Meanwhile, I feel myself getting woozy. I have to navigate for him because he's not technologically savvy to where he's going to punch it in the GPS and be able to find this hospital. So I'm telling my dad, you gotta at least do the speed limit, buddy. Like, we gotta get there. So we finally get to the hospital. He pulls up to the front door. He's still puzzled. At this point in time, I've filled him in on the fact that my foot got crushed by a boulder, but as far as he knows, I walked myself out, drove the side-by-side back to the truck, drove the truck back to him. He's thinking, how bad could it really be, So they wheel me into the ER room, and they got to cut my boot off. Sad day, but no saving that. I still have it, though. It's a eerie reminder. And we go to start taking all my clothing off of my legs because, it's cold out. I got base layers on, whatever. So we're able to get the outermost layer off, and we get to my Under Armour 4.0 base layer. And they go to try to take that down around my sock. They still haven't taken my sock off at this point in time. And the floor just got saturated in my blood. And they go, sorry, we're not going to be able to save these. They cut them off. Sad day there because they don't make that style of 4.0 anymore. And now my dad knows the gravity because he's sitting in the chair right across from me. And his eyes got about as big as dinner plates. And he come up out of the chair when that happened. And they cut the sock off. And it just, again, it's disgusting. You're going to see the pictures if you don't look away or stop the video now. But my foot just looked like a hamburger, right? So they cut it off. They do some x-rays. They're pumping me full of all the good stuff, saline, painkillers, things like that. And the doctor walks back into the room, the ER doctor, and he's looking at my x-rays. Never looks up at me, goes, I don't know how you did it, but you didn't break a single bone. And never looked up at me, turned around, walked back out the door. It's like, well, that's good news, right? So they end up coming back in. They stitch me up and send me home. Some painkillers, some antibiotics to make sure infection doesn't set in, things like that. So the next day, I didn't sleep at all that night. The next day, we drive back across the country to Pennsylvania. I didn't sleep for probably in the ballpark of close to 48 hours. Every little pebble that we hit on the road on the way home just felt like somebody was hitting my foot with a sledgehammer. So we make it home. I crash. I sleep hard for, I think I slept like 15 hours that day just with everything that had happened. I sat down in my recliner and I was dead to the world. Fast forward a little while later, I set up a specialist appointment with a podiatrist. He brings me in and he freaks. Here, the doctors in the ER in Wyoming should have done more than what they did. Unbeknownst to me, I'm not a doctor. I don't know. But they should have taken out all the flesh that was mangled beyond repair. I ended up getting some really cool things called trauma blisters, which I didn't know existed. You'll see them in some of these pictures, I think. My leg was black and blue up to my hip. And then the flesh that apparently they should have cut out at the time of the injury died. And my foot started to go necrotic, which you'll also have the pleasure of seeing some of those photos here. And thankfully, I had a fantastic specialist at home that doctored me up very well. I had very frequent visits, keeping up with the healing process. But one thing that really stands out to me that I don't think I'll ever forget is after 2 weeks or so, the specialist said, "All right, well, it's time to cut these stitches out." And he cuts the first two or three, and I can't even tell you how many I had in there. I mean, it was just they stitched back together what they could. He starts cutting them out, and he's cut a few. At this point, swelling's really bad still. Bruising is horrific. And he starts to cut another stitch, and he goes, "I sure hope this doesn't blow open." Not what you want to hear when the doctor's cutting stitches off of a horrific injury like this. And thankfully, it did not blow open, but the necrotic flesh came later, and it was an interesting, long healing process. By the time I was able to walk again, my right leg had atrophied some. It was noticeably smaller than my left leg. So I pretty much had to relearn how to walk again. And to this day, it still causes me some issues. I think circulation might be a little bad in that foot. It aches with the cold, changes in weather, and I still do not have feeling in the heel of my foot. But all in all, made a pretty good recovery, and even faster than the specialist thought I would recover. He liked to call me stubborn because I started walking before anybody thought I'd be able to. But it took a little while, got my muscles built back up in my legs. The injury is just a gnarly scar now, and the pain's manageable. I should probably invest in like a custom orthopedic like sheep feet for my hunting boots and things like that, but nothing's going to stop me from doing what I love to do and getting out in the outdoors. I still go on elk hunts. I still do, 7, 8, 9, 10 mile days. I just kind of muscle through it. Yeah, it aches. Yeah, it causes me some issues, but like I said, I'm stubborn. It's not going to stop me from doing what I love. So hopefully you looked away before those pictures came up if you're a little squeamish. But if not, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to hear more stories like this, let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. Everything to let me know that what I'm putting out there is what you guys want to see. Till next time, shoot straight. Thanks for watching.